You know how you and your neighbor grow up pretty close, at least if they're around the same age? I did too, but she had a crush on me and something absolutely insane happened. Her and her father came over to eat dinner and watch a movie with me and my family. And I had never really been attracted to her, but this night she was looking so fine. Like the dress that she was wearing was super short. The dinner was pretty normal, but after dinner she sat down right beside me on the couch to watch the movie. At this point it was dark outside, as well as all the lights being off for the movie, so it was dark. And not too long into the movie, she scooched over onto my lap. I was in shock because I had no idea she had that kind of interest. But shortly after she did that, for some reason my pants got wet. I noticed and asked her about it. That's when she jumped up, grabbed my hand, and pulled me into the kitchen. And this is where I noticed that she had no underwear on. She sat up on top of the counter and pulled me against her. And proceeded to tell me that she wanted me now. A ghost actually saved my life. Whether or not you believe in the paranormal, just let me explain how this happened. So one night I was in a really bad mood because the relationship that I was in at the time was falling apart, and that made me want to take a walk. Long walks just really relieve my stress. Where I decided to go take my walk was at this park in my town, and behind the park there's a long trail of woods that leads to a field and to a river. Once I got to the parking lot of the park, there were two trucks parked side by side, and they were the only other vehicles in the lot. So once I parked my car and got out, I noticed that one of the men was giving me an awful stare. It looked like he hated me, and I've never seen the man before in my life. But I disregarded it and started my walk through the woods. Once I got deep in the woods where you had to make kind of your own trail, I heard footsteps coming up behind me. Sure enough, it was the men in the vehicles. And I heard them say I saw him go this way. And those words scared me so much that I couldn't move. As the footsteps got closer, I heard a voice. And it wasn't in my head. The voice was loud and it sounded like it came from above me. It told me to go to the riverbank and hide.
My last semester at a certain college, I was assaulted by a football player for walking where he was trying to drive. No, he was 325 pounds, I was 120 pounds. While unconscious on the ground, I lived a different life. I met a wonderful young lady. She made my heart skip and my face red. I pursued her for months and dispatched a few jerk boyfriends before I finally won her over. After 2 years, we got married and almost immediately she bore me a daughter. I had a great job and my wife didn't have to work outside of the house. When my daughter was 2, my wife bore me a son. My son was the joy of my life. I would walk into his room every morning before I left for work and doted on him and my daughter. One day, while sitting on the couch, I noticed that the perspective of the lamp was odd, like inverted. It was still in 3D, but just wrong. It was a square lamp base, red with gold trim on 4 legs and a white square shade. I was transfixed. I couldn't look away from it. I stayed up all night staring at it. The next morning I didn't go to work. Something was just not right about that lamp. I stopped eating. I left the couch only to use the bathroom at first. Soon I stopped that too and I wasn't eating or drinking. I stared at that effing lamp for 3 days before my wife got really worried. She had someone come and try to talk to me, but by this time my cognizance was breaking up and my wife was freaking out. She took our kids to her mother's house just before I had my epiphany. The lamp is not real. The house is not real. My wife, my kids, none of that is real. The last 10 years of my life are not effing real. The lamp started to grow wider and deeper. It was still inverted dimensions. It took up my entire perspective and all I could see was red. I heard voices, screams, all kinds of weird noises and I became aware of pain. A shit ton of pain. The first words I said were, "I'm missing teeth," and opened my eyes. I was laying on my back on the sidewalk surrounded by people that I didn't know. Lots were freaking out and I was completely confused. At some point a cop scooped me up, drag/walked me across the sidewalk and grass and threw me face down in the back of a cop car. I was still confused. He took me to the hospital and I got CT scans and stuff. I went through about 3 years of horrid depression. I was grieving the loss of my wife and children and dealing with the knowledge that they never existed. I was scared that I was going insane as I would cry myself to sleep hoping I would see her in my dreams. I never have, but sometimes I see my son, usually just a glimpse out of my peripheral vision. He's perpetually 5 years old and I can never hear what he says. Recently, my older sister moved back into our parents' house after leaving her husband. We had a chat where she mentioned that her husband barely spends time with her and is no longer the same man that she married. She expressed how he's no longer energetic in the relationship and it's of all he does is work. Now, I stayed with my sister and her husband for 2 months while I was going through a rough patch with our parents. I've only moved back with my parents in the past month. While I was staying with my sister, it was pretty clear how the relationship was. She wasn't being the best of partners. She would work, go out with friends, and barely contribute anything to the relationship. Her job is a lot better and pays well compared to her husband's, whose job doesn't pay that well. He makes it up by working longer hours, and yet when he comes home, it's him who actually does all the household chores from cleaning to cooking and doing the laundry and the shopping. I should also add that it's mainly him who takes care of the household expenses even though my sister earns more. I felt disgusted by the way that she treated her husband and I'll be honest, I got feelings for him. No matter how much he struggled, he wouldn't let it affect the way that he treated my sister. He would buy her flowers regularly as well as cooking her romantic meals which by the looks of things were unappreciated. He would try to talk to her but she would much rather gossip with her friends, leaving him alone. I used to help out with some expenses and doing a few things like cooking and cleaning which was appreciated by her husband. We used to chat and he wouldn't badmouth her at all but it was evident that he was struggling in the relationship. I even caught him crying once after an argument which ended with my sister shouting, "You just aren't good enough." Today, her husband came to our parents' house to try and talk to her and fix what's wrong. She basically flogged him off, and this is when we began our chat. At this point, I couldn't hold back. I don't know if it was because of my feelings for him, but I basically told my sister all the things her husband does for her and how he treats her like a queen and how she's just acting like an ungrateful, entitled brat. Needless to say, she was upset. She also asked me point blank if I liked him, to which I broke down and said yes. She hasn't spoken to me since, and her husband messaged me saying how I crossed the line and shouldn't have said anything. On top of that, my parents are also pretty pissed at me too. Needless to say, I really messed up. What should I do?
Am I the asshole for ruining my niece's birth over a name? I, 29 female, was pregnant with twins a few years ago. Unfortunately, only one baby survived, a little boy who we called Henry, and my daughter who passed, we called her Daphne. My sister and I were close growing up, but we drifted apart. There was a rivalry on her part after I met my partner. For example, she hated that we got engaged before her. She has been with her partner for 3+ more years, and she threw a fit saying she wouldn't attend our wedding unless she was engaged too. So they got engaged, and threw an engagement party the night before my wedding. When I announced my pregnancy, she wasn't happy, as I'd done another thing before her, but when my daughter died, she seemed to be a lot nicer. Because of this change, we made her Henry's godparent. She became pregnant recently and refused to announce the name until a few days after birth. The baby girl was called Theodora, which is beautiful. I was bringing presents to her, and I saw my dad building a huge toy box with the name Daphne on it. When I questioned this, I was told the baby is going to be called Daphne and only Theodora on paper. No one will use her full name, only her nickname. All of my family knew and supported her. I got upset and started shouting, asking if this was a cruel prank. She came out and told me to F off. I don't own a name, and she liked it since my baby's funeral. My family are on her side and say, why do I care? My baby is not here, so there is no confusion, and don't see why I caused a scene and ruined her happy time, and why can't I be happy for her? They're saying I'm being petty and cruel. They want me to apologize, but I don't want to. So, am I the asshole for getting upset over choosing my dead baby's name? Am I the asshole for cutting my hair so my sister had a longer punishment? This technically happened around 7 years ago, but after newly revealed information, things are tense. Back when I was 17, my younger sister Ellie thought it would be a fun prank to cut my hair in my sleep. I'm a bit of a mover and active dreamer, so when I suddenly jolted, my sister panicked and ended up cutting off a much longer chunk than what she wanted. Out of instinct, my sister let out a scream, so I woke up and saw what she did. My parents woke up to me yelling at her, and in turn yelled at her too. My mom took me to the hairdresser, and I ended up going from having my hair halfway down my back to a pixie cut. As punishment, my sister had to use some of her savings to pay for my new hairstyle, and then gave my sister a choice to either get a buzz cut or no phone and no social life until my hair got longer. Let me be clear when I say until my hair got longer. I don't mean that until it's back to its original length, but rather long enough so that growth was noticeable. My hair usually doesn't take too long to grow, so my sister chose the second punishment as she didn't want to lose her hair. That just made me all the more furious, so out of vengeance, I would give myself little trims at night in the bathroom every once in a while to make it seem like my hair wasn't growing. Eventually, my sister got tired of waiting and missed hanging out with her friends outside of school and asked for some other type of punishment. Our dad reminded her of her option, but it still had been months, and my sister felt like it wasn't fair because she didn't intend to cut as much as she did, and that she apologized and insisted that while my hair could grow back, she could never get back time that she missed enjoying her teen years. My sister would cry and pout, but refused to shave her head to get back her privileges. Over time, I got over wanting revenge and just let my hair grow, and my sister was ecstatic to getting off the punishment. Years went by and we never spoke about it again until we had a conversation with our cousins talking about the worst thing we've done to our siblings. My sister brought up the haircut and I casually mentioned how I got back at her. I didn't think it was a big deal anymore, but my sister got upset and later texted me calling me an ass. So, am I the asshole?
Took my friend's kids to a soccer game recently. It was their soccer game. One of the kids was playing in the soccer game, and the other kids and I were sitting on the sidelines watching the game, and I was cheering really loudly because that's how you assert your dominance over other grown-ups at children's sporting events. And also because I can't stand not being the center of attention all of the time. And so I'm cheering, and the 10-year-old brother who was watching the game with me turned to me and he was like, you can cheer at this game and stuff, but don't cheer too loud and don't say anything that will embarrass me or else. And I was like, or else what? And he was just like, or else I'll call the cops and tell them I don't know you. And I was like, your siblings would never corroborate. Your siblings would never back up your story. And without looking away from the game, he was just like, we'll see. Which was so intimidating for a 10-year-old. Not the threat itself, but the fact that as he was making it, he didn't even take his eyes off the soccer field. Directly after my family dropped me off at college my freshman year, they went and they got a puppy to replace me, which they claim was an accident. They just stopped by a friend's house on the way home from my campus, and our friend was like, look, we have puppies. And they thought, oh, this one's small, blonde, and way too loud for anyone to like. We should take it home, and it'll be like she's not even gone. And so they took him home, and they named him Charles. And Charles is a Jack Russell Terrier mixed with a Chihuahua, which is the worst blend of dogs to exist because they think they're the kings of the world, and they have more energy than the sun. And when I went home to visit, Charles was like, welcome home, this is my house, and he peed on my leg. He peed on my suede boots, and so I went upstairs and I opened the second story window, and while Charles was out in the yard, I played YouTube videos of dogs barking from the second story of the house so that he would spin in circles and bark at the sky. And before you say he was just a dog, he didn't know what he was doing, yes he did.